Good evening, televiewers. Welcome to this other edition of Prime on my Media Prime, the first for the week. This evening, we are going to be looking at the disturbing situation of Africans who have committed themselves to go to Europe by all cost. We are going to be revisiting the manner through which they arrive at the coast of Europe through Spain, Italy. Many die in the sea and in the desert. We also understand that Cameroonians, a number of them died 2 weeks ago. There is also a video circulating on social media of a Cameroonian lady who was abandoned to die in the desert because the delegation preferred to save themselves and not necessarily put more than 40 persons at risk because of one person. We're going to be asking ourselves what would push Africans to be doing this for above 30 years, to die in the oceans, but they say we rather die trying until we get to Europe. What is chasing them from Africa? What is the goal that is in Europe? We discussed this with some persons who are back here in the country and others who have had a taste of what it takes to survive out there in Europe. Our panelists are in the house this evening. Mr. George Mofor is here with us. He is a social entrepreneur and an educationist. We are glad to have you, Mr. George, with us this evening.
Thank you, Kum. It is a pleasure for me to be here, especially at this moment in time in the history of this country and probably Africa and the world, where a lot is happening. In fact, I love a particular statement. There's a regular Facebook page that somebody says, "What a time to live." It's a wonderful time with a lot of things happening. And I want to also extend greetings to the ladies and gentlemen in Boya, and hope that we are going to sustain the peace that some persons are actually threatening it now with armed robbery, entering into private homes in some neighborhoods. We just hope that people don't exploit what is supposed to be a good fight for private benefits.
Also with us is Dr. Michael Ndimancho. Doctor is a lecturer with some of our higher professional institutions in Cameroon, some universities. He's also a member of the civil society, very active at that. Good evening and welcome, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Liu. It's a pleasure to be here. Someone said life is about risk, and that keen risky yen, the Gaina yen. So I think it is sometimes important to know the kind of risk, because the question comes, what is one risking? Or what really are you risking for? It's a fundamental question that sometimes, even though it is good to take risk, it is good to ask yourself some questions about the kind of risk you are taking.
Okay. Is that risk worth taking? Because many persons are trying to go out there to take care of the family now, and you end up dying and actually leaving the family in total confusion. We are also in the company of Mr. Aloysius Tazi. He is a maritime expert. Good evening and welcome.
It's my pleasure, Mr. Kuman. My pleasure, televiewers. It is our wish that the televiewers of my Media Prime will benefit from this, and that at the end of this, lessons will be learned that could save lives in the future. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay. We are also in the company of Mr. Fah Elvis Tayong. He is the Assistant Communication Secretary for the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, fondly called the Kangaroo Man. Good evening to you.
Thank you very much, Kumlenat. Thank you, and special greetings to all the level-headed panelists. Now we find them here present, and to the people of Gunoko village, as usual, and to others from Bemi village, Barakwe village, as well as Wumnumbu village, and above all, Baba village. You know, we think that coming together.
Also with some villages you mentioned now.
Oh, yes. I greet those of Isu and Way, you know, have in-laws around that area as well. So, you know, you're one of my in-laws. So greetings to everybody who's watching us right away, especially talk about Professor Binka, who's watching us right from Bumaka right away, and also to Chinaman from the Chombe's Veteran Club in Tico, who are all glued to their TV sets watching us right now.
Okay, on behalf of my Media Prime and Prime in particular, we are saying congratulations to you, Fah Elvis Tayong, who was honored by His Royal Majesty. You were given a title to henceforth play the role of the mouthpiece of the fun of your village. We say we are proud.
Thank you very much.
We join you in celebrating your new title. Maybe I will no longer be shaking hands with you. Who knows?
Thanks very much. Thanks very much.
When the good things come with that title, also remember us. We also in the company of Mr. Gaina. He's the CEO of Develop Africa. He'll be participating on this edition of the program all the way from Kampala in Uganda. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening to the panelists and good evening to the people of Cameroon. And good evening to my brothers and sisters around the world. Thank you for having me today. Thank you, Mr. Leo.
Yes, Mr. Gaina, I'll start the program with you. Many Cameroonians are perishing, not only Cameroonians, we have Senegalese, many Africans are dying in the desert. How do we understand this phenomenon? The pictures, the videos have been circulating for over 20, 30 years of Africans dying in the desert, dying across the sea to Europe. What is not working?
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Really is a sad story when we see our brothers and sisters dying in a desert, dying inside the sea because they want to go to a promised land in Europe. But I am asking myself a question. Before, we was complaining that we were enslaved by force. The white people come and take us by force to take them to their countries for us to be slaves and to work for them in their farm. Why now, in 21st century, we spend our money, we spend our life, we follow the same channel again to go back to the same countries and do the same job our parents has did before, they done before. Why? The majority of the people going to Europe, they are going to work these menial jobs, those small jobs like farming, like working on the factories, like working in a restaurant, like be a house help, be a nurse. The same jobs our parent has done as a slave. Now is the same thing we are doing. I am asking myself, are we the problem or is Europe is the problem? This is the question I want to know, Mr. Leo. Because I don't understand how you can take your money, you risk your life to cross all the desert because you are looking at a promised land that has never existed, Mr. Leo. How many people we know in Europe that left from Africa, they went to Europe, they have succeeded, and they came back that we can count them among the rich people in Africa? None of them. Now, the situation we are facing is a sad story. Yes, because we Africans, we start seeing that is the government our problem. We can say that we are living on a bad governance. We are having difficulties. We are into the war. But is that really a reason to make us risk our life and to take a very difficult path to say that we can go to Europe to look a promised land? Are we really sure that Europe is a promised land? This is my question to the panelists today, Mr. Leo.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gaina. Is that not where the problem is? Where almost everybody wants to go to heaven, Europe, and we've seen videos of persons who have died now trying to cross the forest in America with the intention of getting to the United States of America. Have we been sold a dream, a promised land that is existing somewhere?
Yes and no. The
There is a promised land because the land we call promised today is the land that was built by us, the land that was developed by us. And we have developed that land to a point whereby it is habitable, and now we are persona non grata on that land. And that is where the problem is. Now, at first, the borders were open, and we were being pulled. I mean, we call it pulled to come and work and develop this land during the period, the 1800s. And now we have carried out our mission. And now it is a time for Europe to block their boundaries. But then there is a fundamental thing about migration, because whether it is legal or illegal, it is migration. And when we are looking at migration, we are looking at the point of departure, the origin and destination, because there are things that push somebody to go somewhere. Either the things from his origin, the point of departure, or the things of the place where he is going to. And for the case of Africans living and taking this kind of, fatal kind of decisions and life-threatening journeys to go to Europe, we think that the causes are all within here in Africa and two in Europe. But of course, the causes in Europe are actually the aftermath of what is happening in Africa, because many people are running away from, they can already be political activists who are being haunted, looking for better life. But the issue is, what is a better life that people are looking for? Because we have realized that people going to Europe, they feel that Europe is that El Dorado, let me call it that way. That world, the stories that have been told by some people living there, and then those stories are so fascinating that it pulls some people, and then they say, sometimes these stories are not well told. Because there are, of course, there are some people who have gone through this kind of way and have succeeded. But the majority of them do not succeed. But just the fact that they sit over there and they are able to tell the story to somebody who has not been there. And given to the fact that television too is one of the major reasons why people feel that it is all good, milk and honey over there, they go there. And they begin to take this kind of a journey that is life-threatening without even thinking. So I think Africa needs to fix, its continent. If Africa fixes its continent, people will live well. Because even in Europe, whether you are doing a menial job, like our first panelist said, whether you are doing a menial job, you are being taken care of. Health-wise, and all other facets, you will not be sick in Europe and you are abandoned to yourself. Because, there are regulations that, every company, whether being private or public, have to follow. I think that this is one of the things why many people are being pulled to that better life. And you know that in Africa, there are some tribes that have the culture of traveling. There are tribes that have the culture of traveling, and there is competition. Many people who travel, many youths who travel, go and tell their story. And maybe when they send back to their parents back at home, we don't care to know what they are doing. It's all is that they are doing well, and that is always the conclusion. And this is what has always pulled other people to follow those kind of stories. Which of course, at the final analysis, this is not what they discover. In the desert, many people get to discover about the kind of the conditions that the desert is all about when they reach there. Those who actually put them there, because this journey into the desert, there are people who call agents, there are people who call smugglers and traffickers, because it's a well-organized kind of a game. You don't just get up and want to go through the desert. There are people who are actually working this as their own business, and therefore they don't tell them the real stories on what this is supposed to be before the people travel. And that is where we are being fooled.
Mr. George Mofor, we are in the 21st century. Mr. Gaina talked about slavery and slave trade. We have all seen what it takes to survive out there in either in Europe or in America, and we see very difficult conditions under which persons who struggle to get into Europe, what they go through. How do we understand that we are in the 21st century and yet people are still behaving the way they do, especially Africans? Does it tie with this migration theory of as propounded here by Dr. Ndimancho?
Yes, cool. I think we are here talking about a human reality. Migration is as old as humanity, from the days of biblical what we call Old Testament, when the people were moving in search for probably subsistence. You remember the story when the people were moving to look for bread, or from one and up to the extent that they had
the Israelites became slaves in Egypt because they came to stay with their brother. There was plenty in Egypt at the time.
Good. And then you would also discover that at some point also, because of natural calamities like drought, warfare, and all of that, those were probably natural, what they call push factors. But today we will have what's now keying in from doctors' intervention, the pull factor. The pull factor, because you discover that after the end of what we'll call colonialism, and most African countries had what I would call flag independence. We had now to taste now the essence of also being invited by those same colonial masters to come and acquire what we would call skills, to come and also build the new republics that had gained political independence then. And when some of them went out there based on the fact that they were actually going to build their capacity so that they can be able to govern their countries very well, some stayed, some came back. But I think the essence here, we should be looking at the fact that this is going to be permanent. Migration is going to be permanent because it's a human reality. But the question now, you look at the profile of those who are actually moving, and that is where the embarrassment comes from, because a simple study, you will discover that a majority, a greater portion of the population who are moving are actually able-bodied and males who are in their 30s, mid-20s and mid-30s. That is the climax of human movement. And unfortunately, what is notorious about the outflow from Africa is that they take very dangerous routes. Now, what could be the reason? We will now be talking about, firstly, economic survival. These are mostly economic, what we might call them economic refugees, because they have not been able to exploit the natural resources in their geographical space. And so, to the extent that, and again, if you look at most of these persons, there are people who generally they don't have a particular skill that they are actually going out there to explore. These are people who are mostly in the informal sector, and you find scenarios whereby it becomes a competition in a certain village, because you discover that even the person who actually, remember there was a period in this country when we went to secondary school whereby those who were actually good, having 3, 4, 5 A-level papers, they were actually given opportunity to study out there by the government. And those of them who went there, who never came back, some of them, what did they do? They got hired by the receiving countries, and they got some resources, and so they were sending some of these resources back to their communities. And then again, it became now a community competition. You grow up with your age mate, and then you are actually seeing how the poverty situation that came around, the what they call it, the World Bank did structural adjustment, when there was high poverty, high retrenchment, high level of privatization. And you discover that there were very few persons who could actually make it in terms of economic well-being at that time, especially in Cameroon. And at that point, you discover that just the few persons who were out there in Europe who could send, we call rickety cars, or what you might call them, these containers. And it became now like inter-family jealousy. Some people will say, you are just hanging around here. Why don't you also go and try and look outside there? Because, and even some even went out there as a result of invitation. Because you also discover that some of these people were also working, had to also facilitate pulling their tribesmen, relatives, to come and meet them there. But I want to tell you that the rise, you see again, this situation becomes again what it is because of the political instability that also happened around, because the fallout of that IMF and World Bank readjustment also led to a lot of unpopularity in Africa that led now to street movements, strikes, and all of those things. And the economy now became somehow jittery, and every person was looking out for survival. Okay. So in all of this now, you discover that people now had to be moving, because the best thing that had to happen, something had to kill you.
Mr. Tazi, you have been out there. I don't know whether you went through the desert. You've seen people tell stories. We're talking about the push or pull factor. Should we still be understanding why this is still happening now? Just to head of the how do we see
Mr. Leo, the situation is very pathetic. For my case, I was, by God's grace, I was privileged. I also traveled on scholarship when I traveled abroad to study, and it wasn't the case with me. But I happened to live with people and even hosted some of them in my own apartment. I think that the bad thing about all of this thing, in my opinion, is bad governance.
Okay.
Bad governance on the part of African leaders, because again, by God's grace, I've traveled to a lot of countries in the world. There are countries in Africa where I've hardly met citizens of that country. One of them was Libya. In the days of Colonel Gaddafi, you hardly meet Libyans. You see them, they study and come back. You hardly meet Libyans who go through this means and then decide to stay abroad.
To other countries?
Yes, to other countries. Most of them study and come back, except there may be very few political ones. So, in the context of Africa, my opinion is that it's bad governance, because people do that out of frustration, out of the fact that they have nothing to offer at home. And as you said something, let me go and die. After all, what am I worth down here? So, if you look again at the rate of the Africans returning to their home countries, if you look at a country like Rwanda, I think Rwanda is #1 in Africa. If you go and check why is Rwanda #1, is because the government in Rwanda, in Kigali, has created the appropriate avenue for young people to come back. So my point is, when people become so uncomfortable, other panelists have mentioned things like the issue of competition, the issue of whatever reason. But my point is, if somebody is comfortable, and not very comfortable, at least have the basic needs, the person can plan to travel, but will not go through that route of desert and all of that. You can plan to travel in a convenient manner, where you have to go to the airport and pick up a plane and fly, which to a certain degree is safe. But when you see people start jumping up, getting into the deserts and dying in the sea, I think it has to do with their immediate surrounding. Most of them cannot get their basic needs in life, and after staying for 2-3 years, you're like, okay, so what am I waiting for now? What's going to happen? And my opinion is that if better conditions are provided for young Africans by African leaders, this would greatly reduce. Okay, or alternatively, they would travel, but travel using better means, okay, or professionally accepted means. So that is the first opinion I have, that it has to do with bad governance.
Okay.
Yeah.
The kangaroo man. Do you think most of these persons trying to move out of Cameroon, Africa is also out of frustration? They rather say we die trying than to stay back here.
Well, I think that I would like to cue in from where Mr. Aloysius Tazi came in, because here we need not pamper issues when the realities are on the ground. I have listened to other panelists who are citing probably social reasons like competition, maybe misinformations of others who are telling people that probably out there is good, and when it's not all that rosy as such. Well, the opinions count, and it is true, but that one is a minimal, it constitutes a minimal percentage of the raison d'etre why people will take this kind of move to go to Europe through, I call it through tedious means, which is life-threatening. The main thing, you know, when we put all of this together, there are questions we might ask ourselves as we move on. Why is it that many people will want to move over clandestinely than people leaving Europe and America coming in clandestinely? So it means that we will not get the aspect of the pull and push factor, which our brother just mentioned here. But one thing is for sure, we must not make an error. The bitter truth in all of this is because of bad governance. in a kangaroo government that has lost alignment, confused of the first order, they've always put in place policies that fails to cater for these kind of situations. If you look at the American policy, let's take their foreign diplomatic policy. It tells you America first. That one is clear. It means that if you have a problem as an American citizen in Guatemala, it becomes the main concern for the American government as long as you informed the American embassy in Guatemala. Now, with the other kangaroo countries, if you like, you die and get rotten in the desert, it's not their cup of tea. After all, their own problem is to get themselves busy embezzling money, busy formulating wrong policies, and signing wrong loans that they know that even when they die, they will not be the ones to pay, but the fourth, fifth generation will come and pay. I only pity those organizations that keep giving money to this kind of kangaroo governments, because a time will come, the young generation of these African countries will refuse paying those loans. That's why you will know that the loans you gave fell on answering machine. I am telling you people, whether it's IMF or World Bank or which kind of organization is their cup of tea. Now look at it, Mr. Leo. Let's take you, for example, to Finland. People will tell you Finland constitutes what is called the happiest country in the world. The population of the nationals in Finland is just about 3.5 million. Cameroon is far than the population of the nationals that constitute Finland. But how do you look at it? Take a look at their health policy. If you are in Finland, one thing is clear. If you are sick, you move to the hospital, they attend to you. It's automatic, money or no money. When they finish attending to you, the next thing they ask, do you have money to pay? If you don't have money to pay, you get back home. Within 48 hours, a text message comes to your phone telling you your bill in the hospital, which is very minimal still. And in that bill in Finland, when it comes to you, it's not still obliging you to must pay, which means you can now decide to tell the health ministry in Finland, I don't have money, but I think I can pay in 8 installments. If they give you a bill of 10,000, you can tell them that you don't have money. Based on your financial capability, you think you can pay in 8 installments or 10 installments. That's 1,000 francs per month. It's accepted. It's automatic. That's why you discover if somebody in this kind of country dies, it means that it was really above the health personnel, which means they have a health policy that is failing to the people there. Why would somebody in Finland, how many persons from Finland have you seen them in Cameroon? Even in America, you will not see them in as such, because the favorable condition, as we're talking here, matters a lot. Government formulated policies has a bigger role to play. Now we talk about other issues in terms of bad governance. You now realize that we have a system whereby the governments think that few of them who govern and take African countries hostage are more important than these masses who get frustrated because they cannot have an average comfortable living, just like what Dr. Ndimancho was saying. We don't need you to live so much for you to must think that you must live an area, which means the basics. And what are the basics? Health constitutes one of the basics, and food and clothing constitute the basics. So if you stay in an area, you are in Dokoti, in the morning you don't even know what to eat. It's getting to 5 o'clock, you are not even sure of what to eat, and you are imagining how the night will be long to get you to another day. Things start getting into your head. One, crime waves. Can I steal somebody's thing? Can I go out of a position? The next thing is that when you hear any flashing story of there is a cheaper way for us to enter a boat and go to this area and trek on food for these days and we make it, you will easily be moved to even go and borrow money so that you pick up with this kind of scenario. So why are people getting frustrated and easily falling prey into this kind of maneuvers? Because the kangaroo systems in Africa, with Cameroon inclusive 200%, has made it in the way that, look at the issue. When we're talking about, if you go to Dubai, let me tell you how kangaroo systems function. Go to Cameroon consulate in Dubai as I speak now. Cameroonians who are in Dubai have problems with their employee, with those who have employed them there. That's their employers. What happens? When they go to complain at the consulate in Dubai, Dubai hear me very well, the consulate are there. They give a deaf ear and tell them, go and come today, tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. These guys get frustrated. And some of them enter through other means that they start feeling frustrated. And when they come back, if they are frustrated under conditions, they will think of going back to recover the money they think they must have lost, or they did not have to come and pay back the loans or the lands they sold in order to move back there. Look at the situations. But if you take Equatorial Guinea, you cannot be For example, in Finland, and you have a problem like someone comes to Equatorial Guinea, and your home country, the consulate, they will not take care of you. It means that listening ear is not there. So these persons now who come back frustrated, and while others get some of these scenarios, tell you that we think that staying here is like a living corpse. Therefore, it's better we take the risk and move over. If we die, all right. If we arrived, okay. And so I think that while we have this Ministry of External Relations that has no use for the time being, I'm sorry to say that, because these are the issues that we have gathered against. I remember sometimes the Cameroon government made a good move. Some of those girls who were assaulted sexually in Dubai, in Saudi Arabia, and all the like, at least they made some moves under some governmental organizations that cried foul, and some of them were repatriated back, and they expressed and explained their ordeals, which was very sad. Okay. Now look at these ones who are going now. For the fact that you see people die. We have a viral video of a lady who died, and the others had to go. But I tell you, many are still on their way to Mexico as I speak now, because they have lost faith with the government when a system has expired. Because, Mr. Leo, my anger here is that Cameroon is Africa in miniature. The wealth we have, the untapped resources we have, the technical know-how we are supposed to have, does not warrant us, like the Malians, the Somalians, and the Nigers, and other like, who don't have the variety of possibilities to survive like we have. And so at the end of it, while we fall prey because we have bad governance, others, we could say because they have only one resource to rely on, like in Mali where we really have poverty. But all in all, the governments that are in place are working for their stomach. They need to go and live, all of them.
Okay, good evening to you, Emmanuel and Ndiwum. Glad to know that you are watching the program. You see a great panel, Mr. Liu. I think if African countries map out policies that favor the informal sectors, especially in Cameroon, it may help to cram down the youth. My special greetings to all the panelists. Good evening to you. And Ndiwum Emmanuel. Mr. Gaina, it's true you say we shouldn't look at the government, we should look at what we can do. Is it possible to stay on? What would push people to be engaging in such perilous adventures? What would motivate somebody to move through the desert? We all know the stories. How can we not understand that this is dangerous? And if we know that it is dangerous and we are engaging on it, don't we also understand that many young Cameroonians are desperate and are utterly frustrated? Hello, Mr. Gaina, did you get me?
Thank you, Mr. Leo. There is two things I want to say. First of all, I agree 50%. Yeah, I can get you right. So I said I agree with our brother Elvis 50%, but the 50% he did not get the clear picture to understand exactly we, the people, also we have our responsibility we play in this problem, taking the deserts. Let me give you first the statistic. In 2019, UN Immigration has counted almost 4 million Cameroonians outside the country, outside Cameroon. 1 million of them live inside African country and 3 million live in different countries in Europe, South America, America, Canada, Europe, they live in China, Asia, Arab countries. But what I have come to understand is one thing, that's why these people who are claiming that Africa or Cameroon is not doing well, they cannot survive, they are going to the promised land. When you study their system of living abroad, either in Europe or wherever, with the people in Cameroon, you find out the people in Cameroon are far better than them financially, intellectually, on everything. Are we the one who did not understand the system, how to operate in African countries, or something is not going right? I agree that the government play a role, but we the people, sometimes we don't have awareness, Mr. Leo. And if you don't have awareness of this life, you see whatever giving you success in this world is information. When you study the 99% of those people taking the desert, when you sit down, you discuss with them, you find out they don't have any clue about life. They just see on Facebook or see nice buildings. Someone send them the picture from Eiffel Tower lying to them, and they follow this dream they follow because they was not having any purpose in their country. Mr. Leo, I can count you more than 2,000 people in Cameroon. I know that they was doing so well in Cameroon. They sold their business or their land, and until today, more than 10 years, they cannot even get back from Europe what they have lost in Cameroon. Now, if we get to this level, we need also to study, we, the population, is that anything we are not doing right that we get to this level that we can understand the economic of the country? Mr. Leo, how many African you know in diaspora who are richer than African in Africa? How many do you know? When you combine all the Nigerian outside, they are no richer than Aliko Dangote. When you combine all the Cameroonian in diaspora, the 4 million, I'm telling you, when you combine them, they cannot be richer than Muhammadu Baba Dampulo, who live in Cameroon. He's not even going to Central African Republic or Gabon or whatever. So something is wrong somewhere that we, the people, we did not address. We are not just blaming the government, because we all know that Africa is a virgin land, and if you understand exactly what you want, you will succeed 100 times than going to Europe. Because the jobs people are doing in Europe, they are just those useless jobs that our great-great-parent who was slave are doing. You go, you clean the street, you went to work as a nurse, and you are telling me that you have good condition. Which good condition? There is a say, John Maxwell from America said that wherever you are, there you are, Mr. Leo. If you are not successful, you don't know how to be successful in Africa. Even they take you in paradise, you will never be successful because you are the same person. Nothing has changed. Environment cannot change human being if you did not change. I've been in America, I live in the US. I see how many Africans who are living in the United States, they are living in sorrow. They don't even know what to do. You see someone who spent 10 good years in a country he is working, he cannot bring you 1 million CFA, Mr. Leo. So now we run from Africa, we say Africa is not well. We go there, we are depressed, we are stressed, we are working like machines. We cannot even contribute to the development in our country. When we are talking about difficulties about the war in Africa, when we go to study, we find out that European people, they were more difficulty than any continent in this world. We all know that, the difficulties. But they never left their continent. So mean that whatever difficulty we have in our continent, we need to face it. And when we face it, we will find it. We face the challenge, we will find the solution. But running away as a young from Africa, where are you going? This is the people we need to develop this Africa. But you are running your responsibility. You say that the Africa is not good. Who's going to fix Africa for you? Chinese people are coming to take over. The moment we come back, we start again fighting. You say, leave our land. Now, when me as a foreigner, I go to your village, I'm living there. All the people from the village, they left. Me, I start doing a very big farm. I'm successful. You are coming back to fight me. How? This is the situation, Mr. Leo. We need also to understand as a young generation that we have responsibility to fight back to make sure that we fix our Africa. Nobody will fix it for us. Okay. And going to Europe is not helpful. How I can take my life, I take my money to go to take this kind of risk that I know is worth it. It's not worth it at the end of the day. Back to you, Mr. Leo.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gaina. George, Mr. Mofor, do you make sense out of what Mr. Gaina just submitted?
Wonderful. Wonderful. And again, this is also conscientization, because when we sit there and, one of the best way to solve a problem is associating the people who are feeling the problem. Because if we end up trying to absorb the victims of migration, especially illegal migration, not even that they are victims of a system, we now encourage more of those movements, and then people don't take the reality, their destiny right here in Africa. Leo, you see, we are creating our own problems take for example, you look at a country like Cameroon. What are the number of Cameroonian engineers who are in Germany? I mean, civil engineers. They are more than all the engineers in Cameroon. These are guys who went there, in most cases, through government scholarship. They refuse to come back. Go to one state in the US, in Chicago, they will tell you that the number of medical doctors, Cameroonian origin, who are there, they are more than all the medical doctors in Cameroon. Now you start asking, these are people who went the legal way, some personal sponsored, some government sponsored, and they go and acquire the skills and don't come back. But again, for those category of people, low, I want to say also the government responsibility is that they did not also provide what they call the pull factor by providing a minimum to compensate their intellectual investment. Leo, it is really an embarrassment for somebody who would have spent 6-7 years reading medicine in Cameroon not to be able to take home a 200,000 after 30 days of treating at least 15 to 20 patients a day. It is an embarrassment in Cameroon when you find a civil servant, whether you call them category whatever, is it A15 or A17 or A, who is sitting and reading case files in a court, and then every signature that he does somewhere, they say a case file that goes through, finally he gets 1.5 or 2.5, which is added to the 150 to 200,000 that he gets. Now when you transpose the same thing, I don't want to call even the other people who they call the teaching corps, where you find that somebody who actually is building the minds of young Cameroonians cannot be able to meet up with a basic physical presentation, talk less of quality food to enable him develop a brain that can be able to conceive material that he can comfortably transmit. Now these are systemic because it was on both ends. The question now is, profile these people who are going illegally through the highways, through the seas and the rest. You will discover most of these persons, I have personal experience because a lot of them were people who were doing what we call the blue economy or informal economy and the rest. And they went there because of the fact that within Cameroon they didn't have a proper freshman coaching or guidance. And so to them it was because the same way that you jump blindly to take a risk without calculating, it ends up that you are jumping to an unknown destination. And that's why, like, I agree with Maina, who says that if you cannot survive in Cameroon, especially Cameroon for that matter, you will not survive anywhere. You know, this topic that you've brought this evening reminds me of the film that a lady did, Paris à tout prix. And what was he indicating? He was indicating the futility of glamour, that what you see and the reality, they are two different things. Leo, a lot of people will tell you that most of these people who have gone outside there, they cannot come back here because they feel embarrassed for the promises that they had in their mind's eye when they were going there. They cannot come back because they are a total failure. I have been even pleading with some of them that there are issues that we can trash and take advantage of, especially like now that we need certain qualified minds to take advantage of an event that is coming up soon in this country called AFCON. There is an ongoing campaign now for 1 million tourists by December, by January when the AFCON begins. But we need now event managers, we need what they call IT technician, infrastructure developers, and all of that. They are not around because even again the school system has to also help us across the board. We are not also training our young minds to also start exploring alternatives to employment. The type of thing that people think that by putting entrepreneurship in their curriculum makes one an entrepreneur. It begins from the home. We have to start teaching the young people from their houses how to manage monies, how to earn monies, not necessarily waiting for somebody to give you, but how to create solutions that will pay you for solving those problems. So we should, I pray that at the end of this particular program, we should be able to be a change initiator, whereby people sitting there and still thinking that that one I talk now on our own, and then after that they continue. Go out legally, because there are channels that you can go out. When you go through this means, because you think that you are a government tire, or you are driving Benzikin, or you sell it and then you move out, you will not still survive, even if you are given even the riches that is available there, because you don't have the management skill, you will not still make it.
Okay, Dr. Ndimancho, going through the desert or entering Europe, is it a guarantee that you are going to survive?
I think it is like, I'll call it this escapism.
Okay.
Yes, it's like you just want to surrender yourself. Like somebody said, rather than suffer in my country, better I should suffer in a foreign land. I mean, there is that conception. There's that conception that people think that they are going through unnecessary suffering that they were not supposed to. Just as if somebody was supposed to give them that bread on, the platter of gold, or life is just supposed to be good, and the government is supposed to provide for everything that they need. So, and again, some people have tried so many times and they have failed, and they feel that it is the right thing to try somewhere else rather than continuously trying in their own country, because they have that conception that getting away from their own country, there are certain things that they will do. Meanwhile, here in Cameroon, they won't do. In Europe, people work in mortuaries, people sweep the streets. But in Cameroon or in Africa, they won't do that. It's, for them, it's like a shame. It's like a kind of a menial job that they shouldn't do in Africa. So you see, for other people, it is like, okay, they are failed in life, and let them just go somewhere else where nobody knows where they are. So, there are so many reasons. Because when you look at it, whether it's through the desert, you see Africans flogging through the desert to go to Europe. Whether it's through the normal way, go to the immigration, and you see how many people ask for passports each day. Now, go to maybe the American embassy, see how many people go for visas. You even see even those who they call the consular officers are people who don't even have the advanced level. They send them here to Africa, and they go, and they are PhD holders who go and they are begging them for visas. Those guys are not educated. Their countries send them here and they come and maltreat us. But people go there and beg because they want to travel to Europe. So there are a lot of issues. I know of some people, I know of quite some friends, a friend who was working for a parastatal, earning a salary of 450,000 francs. He, resigned from the job. Not formal resignation, but he actually took off through the desert. Can you imagine somebody earning a salary of 450,000 francs in a country like Cameroon? He should be living a better life. But I don't know whether it was a kind of a story that he was told by somebody. He decided to go through the desert. And we have so many stories like that. Even, I now have another friend who lives now in Canada. He was a director in one of the ministries in Yaoundé. With all the advantages that he was having there, he decided to leave the job. And, they call it greener pastures. I wonder what actually is about that thing they call the greener pastures. So I think that there are quite a lot of reasons why some people decide. Because yes, those who go through the desert, we understand that they have tried the normal way and they cannot go. But then let me tell you that even those who go through the desert, the minimum amount that somebody spends is about $1,500, which is getting to about 780,000 francs. So you have that kind of amount of money. Because before you leave here, I was talking with a friend, a Nigerian, Charles, who is in Italy now, and he was recounting to me how he traveled from Nigeria through Libya, and before he found himself in Italy. It was a terrible experience. He left Nigeria. He was with his girlfriend, left his girlfriend. The parents are actually in Germany, but he didn't tell the parents that he too was leaving to go for greener pastures. He traveled from Nigeria and went through untold suffering, reached Libya, and he was held hostage. He told me how he was beaten. Because when you reach there, those smugglers, those traffickers, they don't tell you the right story. One thing is that they tell you that this is what is going to happen. When you reach there, you see a different thing. They ask you to pay much more money from what actually they promise you. He had to now reveal to the parents
I mean, that actually he was traveling to Europe through the desert, and they sent money from there. The journey that he was supposed to take maybe 2 weeks, he finally took 7 months, just from Nigeria to Italy. So you imagine the kind of one, and he told me
that person will take years.
Exactly. So you see the kind of, you imagine that you detained in prison there, and the issue is that all these stories people are told about. I mean, they are narrated. I don't know whether, and that's what I said. Some people have just decided that okay, rather than actually suffer or in my own country, let me just get out. I mean, whatever comes. The hard way, the only way. There is a team, a title. So I think we need sensitization. Like Mr. Fah said, I mean, they are running away from the politics. I don't only think it is the political situation in Cameroon they are running. Let me tell you, when I was the national coordinator of Commonwealth students in Cameroon, I got a lot of experiences from students, university students, who will want me to give them recommendation letter and testify to the fact that they have gone through some suffering because they wanted to travel abroad and then go and seek for asylum whatsoever. And they were asking for, I said, but you are just still in a university and then you're already asking for this kind of thing to go abroad. I mean, you do not yet even know whether finishing here you have the opportunity to be able to serve your country in one way or the other, but you are already having the mind of Europe. It means that the education in Cameroon is not for Cameroonians. The education in Africa is for Europe. And the Europe now and America have taken the advantage. They have taken our fine brains and then they take them and harbor them. And then when you reach there now, they give you that kind of, let me call it, quote, fair treatment. And then you feel that that is the world that you have to belong. And the next morning, somebody travels from here to America. The next 2 days, he calls you and say, how is your country? He now calls his own country and referring to his own country I left, how is your country? And you see, this is a kind of mentality. It appears as if somebody has left Egypt and gone through the days and now he is in the promised land. And then he's looking at you who has remained in Egypt as that kind of a place where there's torture, there is rape, and there's all those kind of things. I think that we have to wipe away that mentality. Because some 200 years ago, America was like Cameroon. Because we praise America, we do not know America is a long-standing independent country for over 200 years, and we think that we have to also, we are only 60 or 60 something.
Yeah, but doctor, the problem is the pay package. You want to know how much someone who does the things that we consider menial here is paid out there.
Okay, Mr. Leo, let me tell you, for those who have lived in Europe, what do you call really pay package? Is it really a pay package? Because the expenditure on that what you call pay package, it's neck strangling, it's arm twisting.
Do they not live better lives than they do here?
They don't live. Okay, I have a friend who came from France the other day, and he was telling me, Michael, I'm telling you, I have many of my brothers in France who keep on calling here and saying that they are fine and they are going through untold suffering and that they cannot come back to Cameroon. But they keep living there and giving you the impression. Perhaps what you call a pay package, better pay package, when they get, maybe somebody gets 100 euros and sent here in Cameroon. That is now the pay package they did good. But he cannot live where he is and come back to Cameroon here. Yeah, there are many of them in that.
Mr. Tazi, many persons are living as we speak. I'm sure in Douala here, there are many persons who might have paid already to go through the desert and the seas. You have lived there. We are talking about pay package. Some people say no, it's not worth it. Others say I'd rather go and be the slavery. Somebody evokes the issue of re-enslaving ourselves. But some people will say I'd rather go and be the slave there and than play the master here with nothing in my pocket.
You know, Mr. Leo, I will start from this issue of pay package. I said it was bad governance from Africa, and it comes back to it. Let me tell you. Somebody can be sweeping the streets in Europe, as many of us do. They sweep the streets, they work in restaurants, they do cleaning. In North America, mostly they do house help, clean the old people's home and all of that. But what's this? When I take up to clean, work in an old people's home, my salary is paid on time. It's not about the amount of money. It's paid on time, okay? And then at least you can leave. If you fall sick, this is the motivation. Believe me or not, I've lived it. This is the motivation for them to stay there. They'll tell you, yes, it's true, I'm cleaning here, but at least if I fall sick, I have medical cover to have something to cover me. I can feed myself. I can support my family. If I cannot support, that is what I'm saying. That if we could provide, if the governments in Africa could provide that minimum standards, a lot of people come. And this is the motivation for even the educated Africans that are out there, like I told because of Rwanda, who are coming back. They went to Rwanda in the days of the genocide. They took asylum in Europe. They have packed their bags and gone back to Rwanda. Why? Because they can at least make a contribution. They are welcome. Most African countries don't welcome those who bring initiatives. This is another serious problem. I agree with my brother in Uganda, who says that it is, yes, there's a certain degree of ignorance. That people just leave because out of frustration, but you should find out when something is life-threatening. You should be able to find out a lot of things about it. As the panelists on my left said, you know, the conditions under which we live here is a huge motivation. And even when they suffer and get out there, they comparatively, they may even be doing like his colleague, his fellow who left, who had 140,000. He may go there and become. I know of 4 great magistrates who have left Cameroon and gone to America. They were bodyguard, they were watchmen, night watch, security people. I mean, 4 great magistrates. I know of one leader who, after gathering his justice flight, he pack his bags and come back. So the issue of ignorance and not know where we're going to is there. But the bottom line is, okay, let's talk about engineers. My brother mentioned in Germany. Why are they not coming back? Why are they not coming back? Because they put together everything. The money they are making out is more than what they make in Cameroon. You cannot take the standards. It is true they will spend more. But at the end of the day, bottom line, what do you take home? Can you solve your immediate family concerns? Somebody in Europe, America, so in Cameroon. Can you solve your immediate? If your mother falls sick today and they say they want a 1 million franc, can you provide it? Yes, I can just call my friend in Europe and say, okay, you know what, I have a problem, give me 1 million, and he will give you, because he knows that you are cleaning, or you are doing a dirty job, or you got somebody. He knows that, you know, you'll be able to put it together. It is about the system, Mr. Liu. Somebody, my brother in Uganda, mentioned about that the Europeans suffer more than you. They did, but remember, these are people I live with. They think about, the European will sit down now and think of what will happen in the next 200 years. In 200 years, will not be there. And I make us and say, what will happen in the next 200 years? And Africa will sit down and say natural resources of for the 99 years I put in his private pocket. Okay, this is where the difference lies. Those Europeans, if you go to the Nordic countries, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, you go to those Nordic countries, what is happening? In those days, it was very difficult. A lot of their men escaped to America. That's why the rules favor the women very much. The women who stay behind that made the rules. That's why the women are very powerful. So when things become very difficult, people move. As my brother said, people move. Most of the men in the Scandinavia escaped to America when things were very difficult. So what I'm saying is that, and if the system is good, and today in the Scandinavia, if you tell Scandinavian nationals to go to America today, they will not go. You know why? Because they have social systems that cover them. At the age of 18, a child gets a free house for life. You can live for life without working, but you will not drive a car. But the community provides for your housing, your medical care, your education, everything. The systems have been built to take care of this. These are the incentives. I have a friend who got married to a girl. He wanted to relocate to the US. The girl asked if there's commune. Commune is the local council. They said no. He said she's not going. Why is she not going? Because she knows that when she has any difficulty in like this housing, this medical, she tells you to come in and the problem is solved. So all of this is centers about the policies around where people are living. When people are uncomfortable, they will move. When they are comfortable, they will move and come back. Whether you believe me or not, this is the truth. People are doing terrible jobs out there, Mr. Lee, I must assure you this. But what is happening when they do those jobs? Their salary, if they are paying in 14 days, they are sure to get the money. They are sure to get the amount that they promise them on time, and so they can plan on that. Down here, you are working. Somebody promises money, at the end of money, he takes a 50,000 and give away. You're supposed to give 100. You cannot plan on your salary. The system is the basic salary is too low. So these are all the motivations for people to, as my brother said, it's a suicide mission. They know they are going to die. Believe me. Some of them know that as I'm going like this, I may not come back, but yet they go. For you to take that decision, you must be on the line.
Okay. Good evening, panelists. My question goes thus: Europe was developed through the efforts of Africans, and now why is it that these same efforts which the Africans use, so why can they not use it to make Africa to be a better place? Epa Gislain writing from Mutengene. Africans need to emancipate themselves from mental slavery. Good evening to you, Epa. Good evening. Hello, panelists. Talk about the exodus of Cameroonians to Europe, the Americas and US and Asia. and analyze the contribution of the diaspora back home. It's sad that Africans, Cameroonians die in the desert are struggling to make ends meet out of frustration. Well, it's never a bad idea traveling out of the country for studies, business, and for greater opportunities. The education is to pilot the development back home. Let's get the hint from Nigerians and the Ghanaians. My regards to Mr. George Mofor Collins. Foy, writing from Tombe. Good evening to you, Collins. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Your topic of debate is really interesting. I agree with your panelists that many people suffer to get to so-called promised land and are finally disappointed. But we must also note that many people too have made it. We can't deny the fact that most of the containers we remove from the port today is from our brothers abroad. Don't forget our own Francis Ngannou passed through same means, but he made it. I think bad governance is the issue. Pay package here is very low. I will choose to go there than my present teaching job here. But how you get there too matters, not the desert or the sea. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I enjoy your program, but tell your panelists that it is better to die in America like a prisoner rather than staying alive in Cameroon. Rene is writing from Bamenda. Kudos to you, Mr. Aloysius. Okay, good evening to you. Good evening to you. In the studio, African governments are killing their populations. How do you explain the fact that a graduate earns 40K monthly? Keeping management skills aside, how do you cope with that? Terence is writing from Mutengene. The kangaroo man, should we really focus more on the government? But the big question many persons are also asking is that this is something that has been happening for more than 20 years. African heads of states are seeing their populations decimated in the desert and in the sea. Many of them are dying, but seemingly on the ground, very little is being done.
Well, you know that in international politics, there's what we call front door and back door arrangements. Mm-hmm. In the front door arrangements, they give you what looks like a platter of gold. They tell us we've had bilateral relations between Cameroon and China. We've had bilateral relations between Cameroon and Canada. They tell you that in the days ahead, some investors from this will be coming. But then, the sad thing that these African governments don't tell people is what transpires at the backyard. That you will cede a portion of a forest in their country to a particular head of state for one benefit or the other, who tells you in return he reserves you a street in France or a street in Canada or a street in America and all the like. Whereas he must have calculated, like what Mr. Tazi just said, they calculate things ahead of us. While we think that we are calculating at the immediate part of it, they calculate ahead. So it's still a worry. But you know, while we move on, let me cue in with what our brother from Uganda was saying alongside with Mr. Mofor. I got them said that when you move through, if you cannot manage here, you cannot manage that way. I don't agree with that. I will not be able to agree with that. I have a friend who was a delinquent. That is, we call that a real rascal. Now, what happens when you move in another milieu? The circumstances within that milieu forces you to adapt. If you are somebody who's lazy, by the time you move over, the environment tells you that there's no food for lazy man. By implication, you start getting up and knowing that you have to work without somebody reminding you, or your mother coming to hit your door. Lucas, who can go work? It's automatic. And so, why am I saying so? I got about two panelists, my brother in Uganda and probably Mr. Mofor, who said, most of those who go there, they don't survive. No, I don't agree with that. I had series of friends. We are not encouraging people to go through that way. But like what Dr. Ndimancho said a while ago, that some of them, when going, instead of frustration, and like what Mr. Tazi said, before you go, most of them, I repeat, more than 75% of them know the consequence of going through the desert or through Mexico. I have a friend who came, who wanted me to do some stories on whatever he wants to go to Mexico and then to go and seek asylum as he's crossing over. Well, I told him, well, I might not be able to do that, but it's a risky venture. I told him, if you don't want to do it, I'll pay somebody else to do it. And finally, he paid somebody else who did him the story, and today he's in the US. Now, I have a couple of friends who have gone to Japan illegally. I'm not saying people should take that mode because I might not be able to do. But the main thing I want to let us know here is that we should be factual. It is true, we are presenting to discourage people from going illegally, but I'm telling you that I have a friend who does not have first school. He went to Japan illegally. He has constructed houses in Boya. In fact, if he comes and looks, I should hold his back, just I refuse holding the back. So he went illegally, stayed illegally, and made the money before finalizing things. So the main thing we are saying here is that the risk factor moving to these areas illegally is very high. But the bitter truth is that many who have lost hope and have lost any aspect of living while within the system have taken that risk and have made it. That is the bitter truth in it. If you go to Boya, you go to Limbe, calculate those people who are building those houses. If they tell you their stories, how they arrive Europe and how they arrive America. Of course, I got Dr. Ndimancho who said a while ago that pay package is not, because the standard of living. No. We should not give that kind of scenario here. Because the environment where you are varies. I want to let people know that when you cross abroad, even if you are working at the mortuary, most of them take care of their families very well back home. Many of them have really succeeded in getting their siblings to join them wherever they are. Why? Because in the Western world and the European world, they are made in a way that any little thing you do, you can earn a living out of it. Of course, they have what we call minimum wages. And in their minimum wages, they have taken into consideration the living standard of the environment where you find yourself. So if you say you want to go and wash plates in a hotel, you want to go and take care of an old woman's dresses and to wash her, to bathe her before going back, as Mr. Tazi said, you are paid in hours. And I want to let you know that in real terms, I am sorry to say this, most of our brothers who went legally have been blowing big grammar over there. Their feedback home is not compared to those who have gone illegally. I'm sorry to say that. Because most of them who went on a platter of gold found a place very comfortable, they did not stress, and most of the time they have forgotten their families back home. But those who knew where they're coming from, for example, a man leaves Douala knowing that he was able to eat just a meal per day, not even a balanced meal, and knowing that the siblings are in war, suffering seriously, and saying, okay, if I sit here, I'm not seeing any headway. Better I take the risk. If I die, I die. If I survive, I survive. Those are the persons who have survived Cameroon. I'm sorry to say that. Count the houses in Boya, Douala, those who are building houses and investing. If they tell you their story, how they went through before arriving there, you will know that they are more conscious because they come from a precarious situation. They have gone through series of challenges that recurs in their brain that if you arrive in Spain, or you arrive in Italy, or you arrive in Germany, know that you have not gone there for fanfare because you have a family back home to take care of. So in a nutshell, I think that why we discourage these moves, but the realities on the ground must be analyzed in that. Sometimes I will tell people, I have a friend in France. Now what he told me is that when he went there the first 4 years, he had difficulties surviving in France. But he told me that what they do is that sometimes when there's a riot or a strike, when they discover that they have problems with their papers and things are getting difficult and police might get to raid the homes, the areas where they live, when there's a list strike, they accompany the strike because they will prefer to be kept in custody there, whereby they can be sure of square meals a day, they can be sure of medical attention and other things, while they can now sort the other things later. That is somebody who was not really stable there, but he said that's what they were doing. So which means at a point in time, a man who moves on the street in Douala, pocketing his hands and blowing big grammar, with no coin in the pocket, shishi. Sometimes you realize that the man who moves over there and even sweeping the street is far better, because I've realized something, Mr. Leo. A handful of the Cameroonians who go there who have understood how it works. They move there on timing. All right, I'm going to make it. I take 4 or 5 years. As I finish, I come back. I am with them in Boya. I am with them in Bamenda. They are building houses as I speak now, because they took only 4 or 5 years. Okay. But you discover that some of us, if we take 30 years, what a man will take 2 or 3 years. It's a fact. Let's not hide that.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu.
Than us here.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. My heart bleed after watching some of the videos of our brothers and sisters dying in sea. And is that all the problem is bad leadership in some African countries, because from the numbers of deaths recorded so far, I have not seen one person from Rwanda, Equatorial Guinea, South Africa, etc. But most of them are from Nigeria and Cameroon. Pastor Derek is writing from Derek Doe, writing from Limbe. Good evening. In the studio, this program is very interesting and educative, especially for those who are still to travel abroad. They will now be aware of the dangers in those countries they intend to go. Okay. Mr. Ekole Franklin says, good evening to you, Mr. Leo. A country where civil servants are richer than those in the private sector is a country with bad governance. People don't just travel because they want to. Most of us left not because we wanted to travel, but to make life. Good governance will change a system. Good evening to you, Mr. Ekole. Let's take the reaction of Mr. Tiku Felix from Boya.
Good evening, Mr. Leo, and good evening to the entire panel. Mr. Leo, going to Europe in search for greener pastures is not a bad idea and it's not a bad thing. But the problem is how you go matters. And the specific reason, or your reason should be specific why you should embark on a mission in Europe, especially when it comes to looking for greener pastures. Cameroonians, especially the Anglophones, were pushed by the situation of the situation in the country around the early 1990s, such that things became so hard, and at that time anything goes. The economic crisis was so hard in the country, coupled with the devaluation. Most of it was the fact that all concours, that is the police, ENAM, EMIA, IAJS, gendarme, etc., all were stopped. After the advanced level, the only option was Ngwaikele, that's a Yaoundé University. And admission was not a guarantee, especially for the Anglophones. And those who even seek or succeeded in gaining admission could not cope because of the language barrier. Everything was being taught in French after you've carried out all your studies in the English language. And at the end, they had to back out. So those who were a bit viable financially at that time had to further their education by moving to Nigeria. And the very better ones went to Europe. Getting to Europe, they discovered that the grass was green and the opportunities of making money were many. They could make good money and better their families back home. This was going, and it was very fine. Some families took loans, some sold lands and even pledged their houses to send their children to Europe, because the achievement of those who went there first had proven positive, and the risk of selling lands and pledging houses was worth taking. And by this, the younger ones learned that Europe is a place where you can just go and make it. Technology at that time was not at its best. It had not developed as it is today. We were just discovering the internet, and mobile phones were not. They were so limited in getting information with the realities on ground. Mr. Leo, this era is different. Technology has given us all sorts of information to let us know that the then Europe is not the Europe today. Economic crisis is hitting the whole world alike. And the jobs our brothers were being paid to do in Europe is now being done by the Asians and in a cheaper rate. And some of the jobs are being done by the Europeans themselves. So to succeed now in Europe, you must be very educated and or talented. If you possess that level of education and talent, then it's a guarantee you are qualified to make it back home big time. No reason for you to be traveling with such a talent. And if you do have such a talent and that level of education, before going to Europe, you must have had a genuine, a tangible, and something that is more paying that will cause you to go to Europe. Not just going to Europe for the going to Europe's sake. Europe at all costs is a mentality of a person who is either lazy, ignorant, or brainwashed with a competitive mentality. I want to be like my friends. This friend in Europe has done this, so me too, I must do it. That is just it. Platforms like Prime R is filling young Cameroonians with too much knowledge and so many avenues on how to make it. But wanting to make it big time with a very short time without working makes the youth of today and most Cameroonians think Europe is the answer. That time is past. Europe itself, Mr. Leo, is working hard on repatriating or deporting Africans or reducing the number of foreigners in their land. We've had so many people back in Europe, there in Europe, calling for help back from Africa. One major strategy that the Europeans are using is the reduction of the number of visas that are being released every month. And since youth refuse to be informed by the signs and the signals, they want to use the desert. They want to use every possible means to make it to Europe. Friends also with photos and big talks have deceived them to make them think life in Europe is better. Mr. Leo, it is not what it used to be. Yes, Europe had been good. It has been fine, but not the Europe today. I have friends abroad, Mr. Leo, who have confessed to me bluntly that if they can secure a job back home that will pay them 350 to 500,000 francs, they are taking the next flight because of the situation in Europe. Laziness, lack of genuine and truthful information, competition and love for fast money makes youth talk of Europe at all costs. Looking at it all and detailing, Mr. Leo, you realize that the uneducated and the not well educated are the ones that are actually vying and taking Europe as a last resort. Cameroon is better than most of the European countries. If we can sit, put our heads together and follow the information that we get on the internet and on social media and all the other media platforms like the TV, radio, Mr. Leo, with the level of education we have, Europe will make sense.
That was Tiku Felix coming in there from Boya, Southwest Regional Capital. I don't know whether we have a reaction to what he just said.
Like to react to that. Okay. That was very touching, Mr. Tiku. I think I love that.
Okay.
You know, I remember I lived in Europe. I was visiting this to a friend, but I'm packing back to Cameroon. I said, "Are you crazy? You're going to come to do what? You're going to hit a rock?" And a few days ago, I spoke to a very friend. He said, "I'm coming to America now, so I'm never going to come to America again." Mr. Tiku is very right. Europe of the 80s and 90s is not the real Europe today. Those guys themselves are barely struggling. And what has happened? The European Union has integrated people from Eastern European countries, the Balkan states. So they prefer even those dirty jobs to them who have white skin than us. So the truth is, Europe is not the best option. Cameroon is still very virgin. I was telling somebody that the issue of this brainwash thing about going to Europe, if you have lived there and you come back and you see the opportunities, the opportunities in Cameroon are so huge. In my opinion, there's actually nothing left in Europe. This is my opinion. And Cameroon and Africa.
How long did you stay?
It's still about 10 years. I studied and I worked. Then I came back home. So it's virtual. Africa is still very, very virgin. But the truth is, do we Africans see this? Okay? And the Europeans have brainwashed us with the media in a way that we think that it is best in Europe. No, it is not. The UK owns land in Africa worth 4 times the size of Britain. Okay? Why are they blocking you to come and take their visa and then they come back and buy all your land? They know what the future holds.
China is also
China is doing the same thing. So the future is in Africa. If anybody wants to make it in life, that's why I blame our African governments. If they have created the average avenue on the background for people to at least feed themselves basic needs of life, water, electricity, and food and shelter, I think that, and young Africans sit down, they have increased chances of making it in Africa than in Europe. Okay. That is very clear.
Okay, Mr. Liu, I believe just one day Cameroon will one day be a place of green pastures to Cameroonians. So Cameroonians shouldn't lose hope. Yet the best is still to come. Kenny Terence is writing from Bamenda. Mr. Gaina out there in Kampala, Uganda. Mr. Tazi is talking about opportunities that have been hidden from us. Why don't we see opportunities out here in Africa and are so eager, very ready to die, trying to move over to a promised land in Europe and in America?
Thank you, Mr. Leo. First of all, I want to take the example with myself who live here in Uganda. Number one, let me
Mr.
tell
Gaina,
our brother, Mr. Elvis.
Mr. Gaina, can you on your video? Seemingly you are not on video.
My video is on. It's on.
Okay. Can we have him on, please? Okay. Yes. Just
go on. Hear me now?
Yes. Go on.
Yes, Mr. Leo. First of all, I want to start with myself. I want to give you an example. If you count among 100 biggest country in this world, I've been there, Mr. Leo. Number one, when you talk about going to New York, going to San Francisco, California, you fly to Montreal, you went to Paris, to Berlin, you went to South America, going to Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, all those countries, Mr. Leo, I've been there. I can assure you that when I get to understand that if you are successful, you can succeed everywhere. Doesn't matter you are from Cameroon or from somewhere. But the problem, our brothers African has not get the simple awareness of the success. That's why they are leaving a virgin land like Cameroon to go to another country. Let me give you a simple example. Me, I come from the Fano province, Mr. Leo. I have discovered after living in America that my neighbor is one of the richest person in this city and someone who have more than 20 or 30 billion before he passed away. I asked myself a question, which is strategy that my neighbor is using in my own locality, and he's a successful person that me, I have to leave this place to go and struggle, hustle in America, Mr. Leo. So mean that I did not understand the system in Cameroon. I don't even know what to do. I don't even have the awareness because of lack of information. That is killing the younger generation. You are just watching people taking picture in Eiffel Tower. You think that they are doing well. They are not doing well. Let me get back now to your area, Mr. Leo. I take example of Ndawarati. Is that anybody from Boyo division that can go abroad and become successful more than Mamad Babadam Pulo, and he can build the house and open the big company like him? That's the question. Imagine that in Boyo division, you said that things are not good. You leave the country and you went to hustle in Europe. But somebody live in this place is one of the richest person or the whole French countries. Let us ask ourselves a question. Did we understand exactly what to do? Or just we are talking because we want to satisfy ourselves to say that the government is not helping us? Sometimes 97% of our African who living in diaspora, when you sit down with them, you find out they are living in sorrow, in shame. Yes. They can't go back. Yes. If my brother Elvis now is just congratulating someone who travel outside the country to build a house, did there any villa, very nice house you see in Cameroon that someone from diaspora built that is one of the best house in Cameroon? I'm asking to Mr. Elvis. Is there any best house you know in Cameroon that this person live in diaspora? All the beautiful houses have been built by the Cameroonian. And the majority of those people who have those beautiful houses did not even work for the government, that we can say that there's still government money. So mean that Cameroon is a virgin land. I can assure you the potential, the ability, the opportunity we have in Cameroon, you will never find it in any other country, even some of the countries in Africa here. Now, let me give you an example of one African country, Mr. Leo, and you can go and study.
Go on. You are on, Mr. Gaina. Just go on. Hello, Mr. Gaina. Okay. Seemingly we have to switch. Yeah, Mr. Yeah, maybe we have some technical issues there. Mr. George, the issue is confusing. Many persons who want to blame the government for not providing the enabling environment for Africans to excel back home. Others are fleeing and dying in the desert. There is a video, disturbing video, of what it takes to go through the desert. Can we have that video? One of them. Eli.
Le Boza, ici c'est au désert, père. On est comme ça en train de choquer le désert. On choque le désert, mon frère. Hey, le Boza est là, ça se passe tranquille, mon frère.
Mais c'est dur, père, c'est dur. On a envoyé Jésus lui donner l'eau. Jésus est venu nous sauver. Il faut dire comme ça. Jésus est venu à lui-même.
Père, un conseil, ne faites pas ce que nous faisons. Un conseil, ne faites pas ce que nous faisons. Ouais, un conseil, on est là au désert.
On va se faire ce que nous faisons aussi.
On ne peut pas dire à quelqu'un de courir le risque là. Il ne faut pas dire à quelqu'un de courir le risque là.
Une semaine déjà dehors.
Mon frère, la reine est morte au désert. Comment tu débarques de la Bible, je n'ai pas compris. Comment tu vois le marché, tu peux la mettre à droite et vendre.
Ouais, Boza. T'inquiète, ça va arriver, t'inquiète. Boza. Au désert.
Can we react? Can we
this call group solidarity of Sofa. You actually find people who have told themselves that we are collectively, like what they call a hate mentality. Because you see what is happening there, if you isolate those people one after the other, you will see they start running back and pleading that, take me back to where I came from. The essence of what we are saying there, let it not be that we have to look at it transversally. These persons, they belong to certain families. And by the time they were leaving, they also confided their mission to one or two persons, and probably they encouraged them that they should go while they watch their back. And again, they also cross what you call international borders. And the same government officials who were there, they actually knew that these guys were actually taking a perilous adventure, and they let them go. You see, at times, this thing we talk about freedom or democracy can end up becoming an human action. Now, I don't want us to sit here and absolve the government responsibility. There is a head of state who just left Cameroon. I'm sure he must have left Obasanjo. When he first of all came to power as a military leader, he promised that he was going to create 50 billionaires by supporting them to launch enterprises that were actually solving problems of Nigeria. And if he did not arrive at creating those 50 billionaires, he created at least the Dangotes, the Tony Olumelu, and all of those people. He himself today is also a multi-billionaire. What am I saying here? You find greedy politicians in this country who, by just, let us even give them the benefit of the doubt that it's based on the fact that they were in government and they earned some money as contractors and the rest, and they have created their own small paradise in Cameroon. Now they will prefer not to create industries to hire the battalion of school graduates. They will prefer to go and instead patronize the same enterprises out there in Europe, go to their hospital, go to do shopping with their wives, and go there for holidays and patronize hotels and all of those things. Now, and we have those same, we are talking about untapped natural resources, that is, people who were just supposed to add value. Because I'm not sure a Cameroonian will actually be angry, or a Nigerian will actually be angry if we hear that somebody created an enterprise that is hiring thousands of persons, even if the person probably got the money from some dubious source, but the cost benefit of the impact that it is creating will give that person mitigating circumstances, because it has created what we call the syndrome of this person who used to steal from the rich and give to the poor. Secondly, let us not also look at it from the thinking that the international community can be absolved. You see, there's a conscious action championed by this same international community where they decide to popularize certain countries so that the countries become now heaven for supply of raw material. So they actually, when you see them, when they are even coming to sign or negotiate for contracts for highways and other major projects, they come with their own secret technology, secret personnel, in collusion with the people who are politicians who are signing those contracts. They don't ensure that there's what they call local content. Leo, I want to tell you, when the minister of this country, who is in charge of P&T, came to meet those guys in Boya, for the guys in the Silicon Mountain, and we were putting this question that there's no way you can take the same platform. For example, Kribi Deep Sea Port is talking about working on a platform that is going to be monitoring ships as they are coming on. Those platforms can be built by technicians, by IT experts in the same country. You prefer, because somebody is going to give you bigger tips, you prefer to give the contract or outsource it for procurement outside without favoring what they call, because by and large, what I'm trying to say is that these nationalists who are talking about in Europe and the rest, when they were fighting the Second World War, it was also because what Trump was doing today had happened in Europe, where they preferred first to look at internal development and promote what they had as resources, and today now they are now so sufficient that they want to enjoy those things, and they see any person who is invading and visiting them now as a predator. So we have to, as Africans, with our politicians, sit up and redesign our thinking strategy. Let us all not be comparing incomparable, because when we talk about even one of two persons who have made it outside, they went out to Europe, how many do they represent in terms of the mass of poverty that we have? And as I'm talking like this, Africa or Cameroon alone has problems that we need people with solutions, and the solutions can be found here, but they need the politicians to be able to fight, make those
so many persons are sending me videos of a lady, the Cameroonian was abandoned to die in the desert. A very, very disturbing a video I will not want to share with you, but it's traumatizing. You heard from the videos, doctor, where someone, or they were saying that in a week they have lost 3.
Don't forget, even advise people who are back here that they should not take this type of venture.
I think it's just because this one has gone viral. There are many other untold stories of this nature. You remember there's a guy who even recounted how he was traveling across the desert, and there's so many dead people, fossils of people. I mean, people are dead and they have been abandoned. And then another one recounted the story how when you go, like in Libya, when you're not able to pay the traffickers, they torture you, kill you, and then they throw you into the sea.
Yeah, I got an account of a lady yesterday who said many of them are kidnapped. They move from place to place, and the guys actually use them for as sex slaves.
Exactly.
And yes. But there seems to be a misunderstanding somewhere. I don't think anybody on this platform is asking people not to go to Europe for greener pastures. What we are looking at is the cost. Yes.
I think, Mr. Leo, that is, let people not misquote us or misunderstand us. We are saying that if you want to take a risk, like a musician sings, you must to calculate. You must to calculate. That means a lot. don't get stories from people, isolated stories, of course, of success. Because we don't refuse the fact that people have succeeded. Somebody quoted an example of Ngannou Francis, who has succeeded. I mean, he went through the desert. There are a few isolated cases like that where people are suffering. And the question that we are asking Cameroonians or Africans in general is, do you just want to travel abroad, or you really want to go because you want to achieve something and come back home? Because there is this thing that we call Eurocentrism, whereby there is this insatiable desire to promote Europe or to get attachment about Europe, to love all that is Europe, because people have decided to abandon themselves, abandon their own race, their own color, and they want to take on the race and the color of other people. Let me tell you that even here in Africa, most people who are well-to-do do not live African lives. They live European lives. So it starts by us loving who we are and loving what we are producing. We have supermarkets here in Africa whereby many people choose where to go. If it's not a European supermarket to pay you all those places, he wouldn't go there because he feels that when he goes there, that is where he gets the best thing. And this is what we are trying to encourage. We are saying that we too produce nice things, and the nicest things that we produce, we give them foreign names. Pomme de France and all those things. I mean, we produce here in Cameroon. I mean, why do you call it pomme de France? Is it because the French people call it like that? I mean, there's a kind of meat that you go to this supermarket, they give some funny names that are, Europe is centered. And so we get in for that, and we are happy to pronounce those names. We are so happy that we are consuming those things. That's what we are talking about. Do you just want to go to Europe, or really because you like to go to Europe? I mean, you look at women, the way they have the desire for what they call Brazilian hair and all some of those things. And even us lecturers, you find if you publish a book and it is not in a foreign publishing house, that people look at you. If it is from Cameroon that you publish a book, nobody thinks that is an important book. You want to publish it in a very, very high publishing house in Europe, and then people think that yes, that book has a lot of weight. So we are not discouraging people from going to Europe. We are just simply saying that you should make sure that you calculate before you go, because you will not be here in Cameroon. There are people who can succeed here, but you decide to take this on kind of suffering to go to Europe and go through the desert. Let me tell you that the desert itself measures about 31% of the whole of Africa. The desert, the Sahara Desert, it measures 31% of surface area of the whole of Africa. Imagine what people go through in order to, because we want to succeed at all costs. That is what we are saying. And looking at that video, I saw the video of the lady, Mr. Kum, to come back to your question. I saw the lady, video of the. Imagine the kind of trauma. And unfortunately, that lady, they say, is from Douala at Cité de Palmier. And so I found myself in the place. Because I'm in Douala.
Many persons have been sending the video.
So I think that videos like that are so. They have. And then the girls, we have just seen a video here, girls shouting, and they are pretending. I think that they are pretending that they are happy. They are really pretending.
I don't think they are happy, because they say that they are warning, that they are telling people back home not to venture in. Can we have a listen to what he said in that
exactly
video?
It is really good that people listen to that, because some people have an impression that they are laughing and they are.
Can we have that video again? The video in the desert.
Le Boza, ici c'est au désert, père. On est comme ça en train de choquer le désert. On choque le désert, mon frère. Le Boza est là, ça se passe tranquille, mon frère.
Mais c'est dur, père, c'est dur. On a envoyé Jésus lui donner l'eau. Jésus est venu nous sauver. Il faut dire comme ça. Jésus est venu à lui-même.
Père, un conseil, ne faites pas ce que nous faisons. Un conseil, ne faites pas ce que nous faisons. Ouais. Un conseil, on est là au désert.
On va se faire ce que nous faisons aussi.
On ne peut pas dire à quelqu'un de courir le risque là. Ne peut pas dire à quelqu'un de courir le risque là.
Ne faites pas ça. 3 personnes sont déjà mortes. 3 jours. Une semaine déjà dehors.
Mon frère, la la remet morte au désert. Maman qui débarque de la Bible, je n'ai pas compris. Maman qui voit le marché du Bible, la même doit les vendre. Attention, je know.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm talking about there. Yeah. And we have got stories of about 90% of these ladies who travel through the desert are used as sex slaves. They are raped. Because I hear that when those traffickers, the smugglers, when they take those ladies and they have very, very special regards for the ladies. Sometimes they take, when they gather, because they have their ghettos, they call them the ghettos. I mean, they take the ladies, they go stay with the ladies maybe 2-3 days before they bring them to the ghettos and what's. So most of them go through really, really hardship. I mean, rape and all those stories.
Mr. Tazi, your reaction to that video?
It is very disheartening, Mr. Leo. It's very disheartening. But what I want to say is that we're not saying that traveling is bad. Traveling is good, but go through the right way. Secondly, in fact, with my experience in you, we had come up with an idea. our company had an idea that in 2021, this was this year, if not of the world has shattered a lot of things, we had a project. Our mission was to discourage people from traveling to Europe by creating alternative sources of employment, because Cameroon is a virgin land, believe me. And a lot of people, as my brother in Uganda said, the truth is that a lot of people don't see these opportunities. So there's a lot of enlightenment that needs to be done. We had a project to give loans without collaterals to young people who want to start business. But you have to have a very clear vision that we give the loan, then we are company put to work with you. Because to a certain degree, we realize that some people, this can only solve the problem partially, in a very small manner, because there's somebody who left the job for 450,000. What do you pay him? He will still go. But the thing is raising awareness that even those who go from the airport, Europe is not the goal that it used to be. So people need to know. People need to know that it is not as good as it used to be. But secondly, again, there are few people who have really made it, especially in America, who have made it. They are engineers, they are MDs, and they have made it, and they are making good money that you cannot bring them back home because you will not be able to pay them. So the truth is, if you have to travel, my opinion is, if you have to travel, please use the right means. Don't go through this means, because death is just next door to you. So that's the advice I will give.
Kangaroo Man, we see very disturbing videos there, but what is also very important is this: we are taking this risk, but we will not advise you to engage in such ventures. And
yes, you know that, Mr. Leo, this is not the first time we are getting this kind of disturbing images. I one time followed the one where the women were used as sex slaves, locked somewhere
in Kuwait.
No, still in Libyan desert.
Okay.
By then, one of the warring faction groups had to gather them, not less than 20. They divided them into different cells, and they were used as sex slaves. That one, they did not ask them to pay any money, but for the men, they were tortured day in to day out, and they had to call their family members sometimes. And the family members that they called, they make sure they torture so you are crying on phone. So they tell you that this is the amount of money they need if you want to see this person alive. And you know, sometimes with the Arabs in the desert too, they are also very wounded. That sometimes if you don't react, they can also kill you and then just dump you like that. So you see, we have those images. They are very disturbing. And there's one thing I keep saying: these women have sent out a special advice. 3 persons have died already. Don't try this, don't try that. But I tell you, there are many who are still getting set to move. So it's a matter of, first of all, where are you standing? Have you lost hope in where you are? Or have you lost hope concerning where you are? Now, have you tried all avenues and things have not gone? Like some have gone to the embassy that have been rejected 3, 4, 5 times, and then probably they had loaned some money to do some one or two things, and it's not going. They are already debtors at the time being. There's no headway, and they realize that since as I'm here and I know I'm already a prisoner because probably I cannot pay this debt at the point in time. First, there's no way out for me to survive and things like that. So the other thing I think is that is to go through, and then anything that happens. So these are some of the mentalities they have. But then you see, Cameroon is very blessed. That one is true. But you know, my main issue when you see me coming on air every time is for the fact that we say it's blessed, but the opportunities are not as greener as we put it on air. That, you know, it's a green, Cameroon is blessed, you can do this, you can do that. Because, Mr. Leo, I want to let you know that most of those who go through those channels have struggled in one thing or the other and failed. That's the fact. Now, if we had a system whereby you want to begin a small business, you could move to a competent authority that helps you how to go through. We have small and medium-sized enterprise bank, I don't know when we lastly understood how that bank functions. We are here, all of us. We have the Ministry of Youth Affairs that has been doing what they call Paget youth projects and sometimes assisting some youth. But definitely, we don't understand exactly how it functions. So we have a problem that I keep telling people that we might blow grammar on air sometimes. We say, no, the opportunities are there. Yes, it's easy going. But my main worry here is how visible are these opportunities placed at our disposal. You imagine the woman who says, I intervened sometime. I was saying, what do with Dr. Stanley? I told her I intervened on someone who was selling popcorn on the road when he was being molested by officials of the Douala Folk Council. And it took some intervention before the man could calm down to understand. Now imagine if his machine was seized. Maybe he had borrowed money from a credit union to begin this popcorn business. If the machine was confiscated and he had to come and pay 30,000-40,000 francs, and they say each day he sleeps there, the money keeps on increasing. Now imagine this kind of person. Probably with frustration, they could constitute this kind of persons who want to take this kind of avenue that since I've lost all and all is not going. So you see that at the end of it, Mr. Leo, one thing is for sure, no matter how we say that we have a role to play, like my brother in Uganda, the government policy in any area helps to facilitate whatever move citizens in that country engages. So some of us, I'm not going probably because I'm making a move, I'm into real estate, yes, I'm into recharge and get paid, I'm into super life and all the like. But I'll tell you, it's not easy going. And if I have the time probably to go through all of this, which is not easy, some others don't have the same temperament that I have because we are born differently. But they might not be able to go through what I'm going through to make ends meet. So at the end of it, I think that while we are enjoining and calling on Cameroonians probably to make sure that they rethink before going through such journeys, but at the same time, a policy like what Tazi just said, you know, if we had a system whereby people could come with their small business proposals, you fund them with some minimal amount, you monitor them, I think we'll not be having this because this lady who was even talking, the other fat lady was on the ground. Probably that's the lady who probably was doing another petty business. Now, probably in the business you are doing, what are the charges around? Maybe where you are selling, they are charging you 5,000 francs per month because it's Douala. Probably where you are, you have a landlord who tells you that he wants to increase his salary because you cannot build a house, so you cannot buy a house. And then you look at it, probably you have children that you have to cater for, and then maybe an old mother in this village that maybe it's a patient and requires you to take care. So we have what we call family dependency in Africa, which is not the same in Europe, whereby a man who earns 200,000 francs or 400,000 francs has probably 10 to 8% to take care of. So if you look at family dependency, you will tell you that somebody can earn 200,000 francs and feels averagely comfortable. Another person earns 600,000 francs in Cameroon, and the dependency rate on him tells you that he cannot still survive. So at the end of it, you get stories of overdraft, especially for civil servants. It's not because they cannot manage. Now, management is a relative term. How do you manage? Depends on the load that's attached to you wherever you are. If you have a heavier load and you have 200,000 francs, 250, okay, Mr. Leo, you cannot still make it so. These are the things that prompt these persons to fall into that temptation of wanting to go. But the government, it's a kangaroo one. I'm not hiding that. Okay. They have lost all it takes to prevent this kind of person because many are still on road to go and many are still planning to go, despite the way we are trying to discourage them from going.
Okay. Great topic and better people on set. We all know what is it. That is pushing our brothers and sisters to go this high in their lives of poverty and mismanagement of our resources in Africa. We have everything, but we are still going abroad to look for what the West have come and carry from Africa. Oh, Africa, we are still hoping to see that day we will definitely be free. Ashu Abel is writing from Istanbul. Sumbele Kelvin writing from Konsamba says, good evening, Mr. Leo, and we are wonderful panelists. Good policies by government will really help to reduce bush falling, especially on the private sector. I learned there is a minimum payment amount in Cameroon, but yet our brothers and sisters move from door to door to sell products of one phony company without any salary, but a commission which at times the person earns less than 15,000 francs a month, and the government is doing nothing. PTA teachers are paid 25,000 francs. House helps are paid 25,000 francs, but there are countries in Europe that pays 300,000 francs just for house help, living in the same house with the people. In summary, very low payments here will make people to leave. Sumbele, good evening to you. Prince Ndikum, writing from Sweden, says, good evening, Mr. Liu and the wonderful panelists. It is no doubt that the massive movement of young Africans and in particular Cameroonians across the desert is as a result of bad governance and unfavorable environmental conditions. As the kangaroo man rightly said, there are basic necessities in life, such as health, food and shelter, that if a man can't afford, he will go at any length. Look at the case of the pregnant woman that died with a set of twins in Douala government hospital just because she was unable to pay her delivery bill. I don't think that was the case. You can't find that nonsense out here. They will take care of you before asking for money. Talking of richest, Mr. Gaina, let it be on record that the people you think are rich in Cameroon are corrupt politicians, and a few who have made it out here. Cameroon is... stop calling, please. Okay, Ngu Paul Ngong, writing from Kumba, says, hello, good evening, Mr. Kum. Greetings to my Moyo, the kangaroo man, and my big brother, Dr. Ndimancho Michael. If African leaders should change from bad governance, it's going to stop this risk that we take every day. Whether you take the risk or not, we will still be killed by bullets. Nguru Paul Ngong, writing from Akale Streets in Kumba. Yes. Emil, writing from Jotin, says, good evening, Mr. Liu and panelists. When the kangaroo man is on board, because I enjoy his analysis, say hi to him. He got it already. Prince Nikom, good evening to you. I read your message. So many of them. Mr. Gaina, we are out of time. But do you think the government needs, not only the Cameroonian government, African government needs to also up their game to ensure that the people have better opportunities and reasons to stay back home?
Yeah, that's 100%, Mr. Leo. Our government need to get the awareness to see that honestly we are losing the younger generation. And that is the future of Africa, because we need those young people here in Africa, and they can bring their expertise to make sure they can help us, to grow. Because the more they are going away from Africa, the more Africa becomes so weak. So that's 100%. Our government need to do something, Mr. Leo. And that is the battle our countries need to do. And we also, in developed Africa, we try to make sure that we help Africans to shift their mindset, because mindset play a big role, and to make sure that we can think prosperity inside of thinking also poverty. Because if someone tell you we are poor in Africa, that's not true, Mr. Leo. We are not poor. But just our mindset is little bit behind that. We don't want to agree we are rich. Well, it's not about mineral resources. Well, it's about thinking very good and know exactly what you are doing. Thank you, Mr. Leo. Thank you for having me.
Okay. I want to also say, Doctor, we are out of time. One last word.
Well, one last word is that we should reassert our identity as Africans. And if we reassert our identity, then we can know our strengths. And when we know our strengths, we know where we can go. And when we know where we are going, we know how to saddle our horse.
Okay. And to you, Mr. George.
Yes, I think one of the things that the government, which is already a proposal, sometimes that we should enhance our dual nationality, so that at least those people who are having some grey matter and some technical skills can be able to have the possibility to come and valorize our raw materials out here in Africa, so that we will generate more employment through the industries that they will create. So I think that dual nationality, especially in Cameroon, should be enacted. That law should be enacted so that Cameroonians who are similarly taking on that nationality should be able to have the freedom to come back here and valorize what we have and we call wealth, which is still not yet tapped and valorized, to transform them to industries.
Okay, Mr. Liu, I love your program. The people are speaking well. Bless is writing from Kumba. Cameroon is a virgin land controlled by known farmers and wolves. Collins is writing from Tombell for Collins. Greetings, Mr. Liu. Cyril from Limbe says, when hungry, do bite you and you get small than plenty for lookout for. With no assistance, then you will know USA is the nearest neighbor for Cameroon. Fah Elvis have more ideas about this bad governance in Africa and Cameroon. Okay. Mr. Leo, the program is good, one, but the truth is, if I have the opportunity to take the risk to enter Europe, I will go. Cameroon is not a place to live. A person in Europe can take 3 years to do what a person in Cameroon cannot do in 10 years. Kenneth is writing from Batibo. Okay, good evening, sir. I'm really enjoying your program. Edric is writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Poor leadership in Africa is the cause of youth migration. Kerong is writing from Mamfi. We may have to revisit this same topic on Wednesday, if God permits, to look at those things that need to be put in place so that Africans and Cameroonians actually exploit what they have here. Thank you. Too, and certainly one last word.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Mr. Liu. What I wish you say here, Mr. Liu, is that we need to promote Made in Africa. We need to promote Made in Cameroon. That's a brand that hurts me very much. We've killed Made in Cameroon. We need to wake up. We have to start doing Cameroonian things. We have engineers in Cameroon for 50 years who cannot manufacture a needle. We're importing toothpick. We're importing. I mean, let's wake up and we promote Made in Africa. In promoting Made in Africa, we're going to create companies. In those companies, youth will find space in there to feed themselves. And this will minimize traveling abroad, at least through those means. And this also encourage the very level-headed Africans in Europe and America who have acquired knowledge, like my brother said, engineers, to encourage them to come back because they have places to fit in and make a contribution. Okay. Believe me, a lot of them want to contribute.
Good evening to you guys in the studio. The bottom line is that our government doesn't care about us. Otherwise, they will not live here to go do shopping in Europe. Thanks. Edwin is writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you. Ebu Emmanuel, who should be watching us from 1 quarter in Tole. Extend greetings to Madam also. Kangaroo Man, thank you for coming. And certainly one last word.
Yeah, the simple last word is that since as our own officials, even when they are sick, prefer to go abroad, even when they want to go for rest, they cannot go to Saddle Ranch in Bafut, they cannot go to Lime, they cannot go to Kribi, they prefer going abroad. It means they know that they have not kept this country comfortable enough to enjoy. So that's why you see, even the common man is not finding it easy to enjoy. So at the end of it, the take-home message is that all those who govern this country must go on leave. We can blow this grammar here from morning to night. The moment the same persons in Yaoundé don't leave, we will be stagnant and at the same place going grammar morning to night. Okay. Greetings to Mr. Fopa Thierry, that's the prison superintendent here in Douala New Bell, and to the prison superintendent in Boya, who's level-headed, and the chief of personnel, Stanto at the prisons, and Tayong Fidelity. No, I'm taking a look at prisons because I see many persons are probably getting to prisons because of one crime waves or the other, all because at the time too, the country too is also tough, and you find those things. So okay, the regime in Yaoundé has expired. I need to go on leave. Thank you.
Mr. Liu, you needed to bring in a young man or woman who perhaps lives in Europe or America to talk on this topic. That is so sensitive. Yes, those on the panel right now, we don't expect them to move to Europe. With that risk, they may not understand the emotions of these generations and why they do this. It's beyond politics. It is tension growing among this generation. Lots of them watching this show right now, but believes me, if someone from their generation was on the show and who has had European experience talks, they will listen and believe. This risk is an emotional risk. Okay, the Godfather is writing here, but that is also why I brought Mr. Tazi here. Mr. Tazi has been, he has lived in Europe, and Mr. Gaina has had that experience out there. He says he's been to both 100 countries. Hello, traveling through the desert or sea to Europe is seemingly like the Israelites leaving Egypt to the promised land, though a lot of people died on the way, with some even blaming Moses, saying they were better off in Egypt. But truly, was Egypt better than that promised land? I would personally not like to travel out through that means, but is the land bad because of the route, or the route is bad? By the way, my uncle just traveled to the US working at a mall 2 years gone. He's about constructing a house. We want to thank all of you who took time off to watch the program, and especially the production team, Desmond, Eli, Noel, and everybody. And special greetings to you, and thanks to you, Tabitha and Abril, who is supervising our work here. Special greetings to my friend Kista Kulu, who is also providing us with moral support. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.
Embrace HIPMAT. Embrace its academic and professional reputation that has trained over 15,000 professionals in 10 years. Embrace HIPMAT's numerous professional programs from HND to BTech, BSc, and MBA in the schools of Business and Management Sciences, Engineering and Technology, and the School of Transport and Logistics. Embrace HIPMAT's professionalism, excellence, and consistency with solid mentorship from the University of Bamenda and the University of Boya. Embrace HIPMAT's skills, development, expertise, and career orientation via workshops and academic field trips. Be part of the HIPMAT family. Visit our Boya campus at Checkpoint Moliko and Douala campus at Carrefour Yoro, Jos, Bonamusadu. Contact 683-70-1720. The Higher Institute of Business Management and Technology, the University Institute for Professional.